Welcome to part two of our beautiful Love in the English Countryside. So, today we're going to be talking about the connection that is still continuing between my love and I. So, I wanted to think about this relationship that's been growing so quickly, this love that's been consuming both of us. I wanted to pause and think for a while. The reason for that is that because a year before, I just recovering from a very deep and difficult love that had not worked out right. So I wondered if I should just take a pause, just pause and walk through the English countryside on my own. And then we thought maybe one of the greatest things about our love is that we're like being in the countryside, walking in the countryside, driving in the countryside. So the car journeys are what connected us so strongly. My love would drive through the beautiful villages, sharing memories of his different adventures, riding on his bicycle through the villages. I found that when he was not speaking about his adventures, he would be quiet for long periods of time. I too would become silent and mirror his silence. I found it so peaceful to be silent. I loved the silence. Against the background of the English countryside, my eyes would scan the trees, the different landmarks, and I realized that what was taking place was our souls were connecting. And so it was totally fine to be silent. So our exploration of the countryside would be a mixture of speaking and relating to each other about what we saw, and then times of silence. Once we returned from our many small trips, me and my love would make a small and humble meal together in his cottage. And after clearing away our plates, the discussions and debates of life, politics, religion, and any current events could would commence. I questioned his take on religion and spirituality, and he would question mine. He questioned my upbringing in a Christian family, where my father was a minister of the gospel in the black churches. I questioned his belief that he had strong sense that when he focused he could heal. I would counter his claim and remind him that Jesus and God were only ones who could truly heal. He would say he had sense that if a person was troubled or sick, he could just feel them, and that he had an aura, and I could get into healing. He could get into healing energy. How ridiculous, preposterous. These powerful discussions question my understanding of the Bible, scriptures, yet I would get into his energy and feel his love and keep getting deeper into our love. Yes, he would agree that Jesus and God are the healer, but humans are channels of this healing. Well, is this not what I also believed? It's also what I believed deep down. So then we had a life together at university, but we also had a life apart because I lived in a big city and he lived in the smaller villages, and we were quite hundreds of miles away from each other in our real world when we weren't at university. So, bonding when we were not together. My love worked when he was not in university in his local community, but I traveled back to the large city where I lived for the past 10 years to work, and I had rented out my flat or my apartment, which was a large Victorian house, the upstairs part. So when I worked in the large city, I would stay with friends or sleep at my workplace because this was part of my job. In the evening times, we would communicate by telephones. We're not together, linked by wire to the wall. Yes, I was always intrigued by the way he communicated. My love would ask me all the things I did, and I would tell him the things I did when we were apart, how I felt about them, and he would tell me how He was doing all the things he did, and we would agree a time to call again. I was so excited to return to university after working the weekend or holidays in the large city, which, as I said before, was about 4 hours away. Our greetings were excited. We was always excited to see each other, to hug and to kiss and to share experiences that happened when we were apart. I would drive back from the city to his cottage in my small car, and we would do this elaborate greeting, hugging, kissing, and often he would pick me up and put me on the kitchen workshop so we could really see each other eye to eye, because I am quite short to than he. Our eyes and our hearts would smile, really smile. Are you going to leave me on this kitchen countertop? Then we would kiss and laugh as he gently placed me back on the floor. Now we had to explore his small fridge to find something to cook, to eat. And this is when I was introduced to puffball mushrooms. My love explained that he gathered these mushrooms in the countryside and they were soft to eat, they were safe to eat. He chose these because they were unlike other mushrooms. They were thick, they were robust, they're thick, they're quite meat like to cut. Slicing them up them would bulk up the meal. I followed his lead and learned to cook the puffball mushrooms from a fridge with very little in it. We were learning to make large and filling meals. My dad is going to marry Tina Turner. During one of our college seminars, before I had started to connect deeply with my love, he had mentioned that he had was divorced and had a little girl who he had his young daughter who he had most weekends to care for. So on one of my early visits to his cottage, I was introduced to his daughter. I met her, she was about 8 years old, with long flowing blonde hair, just like him. I noted he was committed and dutiful to the child and spent a lot of time with her, often riding on their bikes for miles while I would just sit and do my university work or make a meal. One day they had gone riding on their bikes for what seemed like hours. On return, I asked, "Isn't the bike ride too long for a child of her age?" To which he answered, "She loves riding. She's a strong cyclist and enjoys riding on the in the countryside." I had noticed how he rode to protect and position himself to protect her as they drove, as they rode along. How did we keep our connection when we were miles apart? I realized that keeping connected while we were miles apart was because I realized that I carried my love in my heart all the time. I was full of him. I remembered his eyes, his soft, gentle blue eyes. I remembered his smile, his laughter, most of all his physical presence. I also look forward to going back to him to have our deep debates. What struck me now is how remarkable it was that two people could discuss such strong and deep subjects and remain so deeply connected. And our discussions were not hostile, but just explorative. It would always drive me to the train station if I decided not to drive back to the large city to work. He knew we would miss each other, but we respected the existence we each had independently of the times that we were apart and the life we had away from each other. One of the biggest tests in this deep love, this deep journey, was that my love decided that he would go on a solo biking trip across Europe, Germany, and Holland. How amazing! I thought he would cross on the ferry and go into Holland, spend time there with his friend, and then from there he would cycle into Germany. Wonderful. I realized that I didn't in no way feel intimidated because there's something deep inside me, and even it is now, many years after, that recognized that to connect a soul and two connected soul didn't always need to be in the same place. It was safe for me and also for my love to go elsewhere and enjoy other things and explore other parts of their life. I didn't have the clawing need to restrict him or to us to be included on his solo trip. It felt so good that he explored his interests and I explored mine. So I would go to a small day trips on my own into the English countryside or to a larger university town and sit by the river and enjoy the scenery on my own. There was only space in my heart for my love, and even though in these weeks we had no telephone calls, just silence, and bringing to memory touch, feelings, things that we shared together, I would travel to London until and also look at the local markets, go and look at frick and fracks, pick up items of interest, walk along Camden Market. I loved Camden Market and Portobello Road Market. I loved picking up bargain old pieces of antique that the seller did not see much value in. Then I would explore the bookstores. I decided that when my love returned from his trip in Europe, I would buy him a book from one of the little shops along the path of Camden Market. I also like going to the other markets in East London, and it was one of those markets where I picked up this really pretty red dress, cotton red dress that I wore for many, many years. I enjoyed wearing that dress as it's such a pretty cotton. I enjoyed wearing it for many, many summers. I also had a blue dress that I'd bought on the market, but that didn't have the same interest. But the red dress was very different. When my love was away, I wrote him a love letter, just confirming to him that I love him. And I did not love him with conditions. I truly loved our love and our time together. But if at any time he felt this was not a journey he wanted to continue on, I would be good with it because I truly loved, even adored our special relationship and the time that we spent together. Collaboration of hearts, souls cling to each other, a level of connection that is very rare amongst humans, but it's also very special. So one day my love said, let's take a picnic in my local park and go meet one of my best friends from my childhood. Oh, I thought. Yes, he said, it's a beautiful summer's day, so let's go and meet my friend. So thank you for being a part of part two of this wonderful love story. And we'll explore more in part three how our love grows or what the state of our love as we begin to explore different things and meet his friends. And he will meet my family.